Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. After a rough stretch, it's freaking getting scary. I mean, it's freaking getting nervous. I mean, you've seen me post that meme. I can't keep coming. I'm a Mets fan. This whole month of September is going to describe that. I mean, thank God we won the first game of the doubleheader. As I'm looking now, we're up 7-0. We're up 7-0 in the first game. In the bottom of the fourth. But
yeah, exactly. So they won that first game 5-1. They're up 7-0 in this game right now. After a couple of shaky days, things are back to normal, right?
Yeah, hopefully this time. I mean, I offered Jabu top shelf rum, so hoping this top shelf rum appeases Jabu.
Well, hey, when you look, what's that?
Please steal the rum. Can't steal.
Exactly. And you know who definitely didn't steal his rum earlier today? That was Chris Bassett. As Chris Bassett looked awesome today. 7 innings, 1 run, really looked good. Kept the base paths clear for the most part, and just went out there and gutted it out through 7 innings. Great job by Chris Bassett. They're hoping that they get the same thing, maybe 6, maybe 7 innings, depending on how hard they want to push DeGrom tonight. So hopefully we get that. But unfortunately, one guy that we're not going to be seeing for a little while is Max Scherzer, who we learned today has been placed on the IL 15-day, the old school 15-day injured list, retroactive to September 4th. So the next possible time we have to see him is on September 19th. Definitely a little scary. How you feeling in regards to the Scherzer injury?
Hoping right now that everything works out, that it's just 2 starts and he's back in time. All right, we need the guy, especially we need to have. Hopefully, it works out. I think it looks like it could work out. DeGrom and Scherzer pitching in that Atlanta series, which is going to be such a key series. I mean, I wish the airfare wasn't as high as it is to get to Atlanta, and the ticket prices, because they sold out on the resale. It looks like the prices. I mean, it's going to be like $50 on the resale just for one ticket. So just for one ticket in upper deck. So, but if there wasn't so much that could make it a little difficult, I would if I could fly out there for that series if I could.
No doubt about it, man. And
I might set as at a bar, because that looks like the series. I might have to watch that at Donovan's, because that looks like it could be the series that defines the whole season right there.
I mean, no doubt about it. For the most part, it's looking like there's no chance that it's not going to be that. The Braves just don't lose. They were showing the record before. The Braves are 64-24 since the end of May, which is just absurd. They're 40 games over 500. They've been ridiculous. And even after that, after the Mets Braves series that happened, where the Mets ended up taking 4 of those 5 games, the Mets since then have gone 16-12, which, look, I mean, that's not great, but it's also not terrible. In that same stretch, the Braves have gone now 21-5. Just absolutely crazy. They're playing over 800 ball over the last month. This team just doesn't lose. And, the Mets, look, they had a 10-game lead on June 1st. That got whittled down. They ended up, it was a half game. They built that back up to 7 games. We forget about that. After the Mets took that 4 or 5, they ended up building up a 7-game lead, and that got whittled down again. We watched the Braves tie the Mets yesterday. Now, luckily, where it looks like the Mets are going to have a doubleheader sweep today, as long as they hold on for this win, that means coming into Friday's game against the struggling Marlins, the Mets are at least going to have a half-game lead of first place. But I mean, it was the first time. Yesterday was the first day since April 11th that the Mets hadn't had sole possession of first place. And Dan, what was your reaction to that? Were you one of these people that were hitting the panic button, or were you a little bit more confident in your team?
I was confident, but a little bit nervous at the same time. I mean, it's like we can't go on. It's like they always go on these long winning streaks, and we can never gain anything on these long winning streaks. Hopefully, we get a long winning streak ourselves because we need it. And also, I have to say, I feel like we're kind of lucky we're not facing Alcantara this weekend.
Yeah, luckily Alcantara will be pitching tomorrow against the Phillies before the Mets get into town. So definitely big break for the Mets. And, the way the schedule did break down too really worked out in the Mets' favor, because the Mets really missed Alcantara by just a day the last 2 times they played the Marlins. So let's hope the baseball gods stay on our side, because, Alcantara probably still is. If he's not leading, he's in the top 3 candidates for the Cy Young Award right now. And, but
fan in Florida, your way out to the stands and be loud and be proud.
yeah,
Speaking of Met fans and stuff, I'm surprised the 7 Line hasn't yet sold the shirt that says Basset Hound.
I'm surprised about that too. Or even like dog masks or something like that. Because do you remember the old, when the Phillies had Randy Wolf? You remember they used to have the Wolf Pack, and the guys up top in Veteran Stadium would put on those wolf masks. So it's funny you say that. I was just thinking about that recently. I wonder why the Mets haven't gotten on that more for Basset Hounds.
Yeah, I'm really expecting any moment now you will be seeing that shirt being sold on the 7 Line's website.
It should be. And by the way, 7 Line, if you pick that up from this podcast, direct all the money to Daniel Bobo Kurlan.
I could agree, people. I'm gonna be sitting with them at their last home game outing this year. The last home game, I'll be sitting with them.
Very cool. Very cool, man. And too. So there's a couple of things I did want to touch on with the Mets. Obviously, right now we're in the softer part of the schedule, which over the weekend it didn't really feel that way, with the Mets dropping Saturday's game, Sunday's game, and after the rain out on Monday, they dropped Tuesday's series opener here. Very disappointing couple of days stretch there for the Mets. The offense really struggling. It looks like tonight's game, Francisco Lindor started to break out a little bit more. He's got 3 RBIs. He's got 2 doubles, 1 from each side of the plate. So you love seeing that out of Lindor. Still not seeing too much out of Pete Alonso. Really want to see Alonso wake up a little bit, but he's been great all season. So, he is due to struggle for a little bit if he wants. The other thing too, Pete Alonso's got 3 home runs his last 32 games. What were you saying, Dan?
I think he was probably going to break out of that slump big time in that stretch run.
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree. I think Pete's going to come back around. But I mean, when you hear a stretch for Pete Alonso, a guy that, we've seen hit bombs for the last couple of years here, it's not too often that you see him go through a 30-game stretch where he only has 3 home runs. And in his last 25 games, he only has 11 RBIs. So, very concerning numbers with the amount of production that we're used to seeing out of Pete. But hey, I mean, the guy was bound to struggle at some point, right?
Yeah, it was, especially with the fact that he's had to carry a bulk of the weight on his team. So it does happen a bit. Also, I gotta say, going down this stretch, what was it? What was I gonna say? I've also decided that for the rest of the baseball season, I will not be listening to any music by anyone from the state of Georgia. Just for the rest of the baseball season. Maybe once like a month or so after the World Series, maybe 2 weeks after the World Series, there'll be some Georgia born artists in my music rotation after that. But for the rest of the baseball season, my music rotation will not have anyone born in the state of Georgia.
Really? Well, how about once the Braves get knocked out of the playoffs?
That then I might do that. Then I'll probably bring back the Georgia born artists into my rotation. But for the time being, it's not gonna happen. And that's Georgia. Believe me, if I was somehow offered to somehow get to be there for that series in Atlanta, believe me, I'll be spending plenty of the money supporting the local economy. Believe me, I'll be spending some money, maybe getting some Southern barbecue, eating some peach cobbler for dessert.
Very true, man. Very true. And there is one other thing that I did want to talk about too, because with the Mets right now, we're kind of in a spot where, obviously it's a dogfight for the division title, but they're playing a bunch of crappy teams now, and you just got to hope they get the job done. But the fact of the matter is, right now that we're in September, we're playing these meaningful September baseball games that we always talk about. That you just want to get to this point in the season and have it matter. And right now, it definitely matters for the Mets, no doubt about it. But I want to ask you a question because there's something that I noticed, and maybe it's partly because most of the season, everything that Buck Showalter has touched has gone right. He's had the Midas touch all year. Everything's worked out great. The bullpen he's handled beautifully. He's not overworked guys. Any lineup decision he's made has worked out. That's why the Mets are 35 games over 500 right now. But one thing I did want to ask you. So let's go back. Let's go back to Saturday night. Saturday night, the Mets aren't hitting. It's 2-1 in the bottom of the eighth inning. The bottom of the eighth is happening as the Mets are batting, and we see in the bullpen that Edwin Diaz is warming up and Adonis Medina is warming up. Now, I'll give Buck the credit that Adonis Medina has come through in certain situations for the Mets this year. He actually has. And a bunch of these situations where these no-name guys Buck pulls out because he has no other options. It's been crazy this year how often that's worked out. But the thing that gets me is that it's 2-1. You're in a game right now where, look, the Mets are playing the Nationals. It doesn't feel like it's a playoff game, but guess what? It pretty much is, because the Braves are nipping at the Mets' heels, and they have been, and it was it was 3 games that night, but 3 games quickly went down to nothing as the Mets lost the next 3 and the Braves didn't win any. But the thing that I want to put a light on here is that instead of bringing in Edwin Diaz in a tie in a game where you're down 1 to try to keep it there and give your team an opportunity to come back and score that run at the bottom of the ninth and tie it, or God forbid, maybe score 2 runs and win it, he brings in Adonis Medina, who proceeds to go out there and completely blow the game up. A 2-1 game within a couple of pitches became 7-1, and suddenly it's a game that you have no shot of winning going into the bottom of the ninth. So did you notice that too? That it was because he did it again on a Tuesday night, last night's game, which I'll get to in a minute. But on Saturday night, did you notice that at all? Because that really bothered me that he didn't bring in Edwin Diaz to hold that as a 1-run game.
I think he should have brought in Edwin that time. I mean, that was as bad as the decision as that time he during his time managing the Yankees when he listened to the when he took that suggestion from the assistant to the traveling secretary that time. I mean, talk about it. And then I'm sure you all remember that embarrassment when remember that time when Matt Lee split his pants. That's the level of decision he made. That bad decision he made. That
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're 100% right, man. And then the thing that really got me was okay, you know, maybe, Buck's just trying to be careful with his guys. He's trying to still, not push the bullpen. But even though we're at that point in the season right now where it's time to push the bullpen, you shied away from it in April, May, June, July, and August for good reason. Now we're in September and October, and you have to push the guys that can get the outs. We want to see Ottavino out there. We want to see Seth Lugo out there. We want to see Edwin Diaz out there. To a lesser extent, a guy like Tommy Hunter, maybe, even though he had a rough night last night. But, they're running out these guys like Joely Rodriguez, who I cannot stand watching Joely Rodriguez pitch. They're running out that guy like they had last night, Bryce Montez de Oca. What was that? And look, the thing that really pissed me off was last night when it's a 4-0 game. Brandon Nimmo hits a 2-run shot to make it 4-2. So suddenly you go from a game where you don't really feel like you have a chance to win this game, where boom, you're right back into it, 4-2. He comes out and he puts in Bryce Montez de Oca, who proceeds to go out there, and just like Adonis Medina did on Saturday, he blows the game wide open. Suddenly a 4-2 game is 8-2. And I just don't understand, because Buck Showalter looks to me like he has this way of managing where you manage a certain way when you're behind, and you manage a certain way when you're ahead or tied. And man, I mean, there's a big difference between being behind 1 or 2 runs to being behind 7 or 8 runs. So that type of thing just was really getting to me. And did you notice that last night too? Because I mean, he even had a chance to take him out where de Oca pitched that first inning, the 7th inning, and wasn't too bad, and got that first out, whatever it was. He got them down. He got out of the inning unscathed. But then when it was when he sent him back out for that 2nd inning that this guy gets lit up and you let the game get away from you. I just don't understand why he does that.
Yeah, I think he shouldn't have sent them out for that 2nd inning. That one really bothered me. Like, really, what is? I was like making that. I don't know if you remember watching seeing those videos by the Angry Video Game Nerd, but remember when he yells out, "What were they thinking?" That
Yes.
When I saw that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, man. And look, I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to say Buck's a terrible manager because of it, because he's not. Buck is still having a great year. The Mets are having a great year. It was just curious to me because Buck has said this whole season, hey, we're going to take care of our pitchers early in the season so we can use them as we need them later in the year. And that made 1,000% chance to, a 1,000% sense to me, because look, the fact of the matter is, if the Mets are playing the Seattle Mariners in May, and Edwin Diaz has worked 3 days in a row, you're not going to run him out there for a 4th day in a row to win this freaking game in May and blow the guy's arm out. You're not going to do that. But when you come to a situation in, September now, and I know Buck even said he doesn't want to use guys in both ends of a doubleheader, and luckily that didn't end up being the case today because Seth Lugo threw 2 shutout innings to end game 1 today. But I'm saying if you had a save situation in game 1 and a save situation in game 2 today, Edwin Diaz should be in both games, right?
Yeah, exactly. They should use be not afraid to use Edwin Diaz in both ends of that doubleheader. This is the time to do it. This is it right here. It's everything right here at this time of year.
Absolutely, man. This is what we played all year for. And I totally get Buck being cautious most of the year. I totally get it. But, it's picking your spots. And I felt in those two spots over the last week that Buck did make a couple of errors there. But you know what? It's a long season, and Buck has earned the right to make a mistake or two here and there because he's been so good this year. So I can't sit here and kill the guy over it. And then we do have to remember one other thing too, that the Mets finish up this doubleheader today, and then they have off tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, they play for 13 consecutive days, and all of those, for the most part, are going to be without Max Scherzer. So they're really going to have to figure things out. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit lacking in the starting department right now.
Is that I think Tyler McGill is very close to coming back.
Yes, very true. I was just going to mention that actually too. Perfect segue, buddy. That's the chemistry that they're always talking about. So so we're talking about right now, just like you mentioned, Tyler McGill was actually bumped up today to AAA. So he's going to be continuing his rehab down there in AAA. And as a matter of fact, also Joey Lucchesi is getting bumped up. He started his rehab from Tommy John surgery in single A. He had a couple of appearances that all went pretty well. He's going to be moved up to double A. So, it's very feasible that over the next week or two, we could be getting back both Joey Lucchesi and Tyler McGill, which would be a really big boost to this pitching staff.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. And by the way, no, he's not. No, Tyler McGill is not related to Saul Goodman.
Yes, we can get that fact out of the way, as you're 100% right about that. And
Breaking Bad, the character Saul Goodman.
Yeah,
practice law under a fake name, and his birth name was James McGill.
Yeah, very true, man. And it's right now for the Mets, things are not going to be slowing down. They're going to have this off day tomorrow, which is the day that most people are going to be seeing this. But then they go to Miami for 3. They come home for 3 against the Cubs, and then they play 4 against Pittsburgh next weekend at Citi Field. So it's going to be real interesting next week because, look, you would think that the Mets should be on a pretty big winning streak right now because they should have won those 2 games against Washington last weekend, or at least one of those 2. And you'd think that just based off looking at the records, Washington being one of the worst teams in baseball, that the Mets would be on a winning streak right now, but that's not the case. As when you see this poor schedule the Mets are going up against right now, the biggest thing is to take advantage of it, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. I was like shocked. I mean, the Sunday game. It's just for me complete disgust. I mean, I was at the Cyclones game on Sunday, but I had the radio feed of the Mets game on my earphones, right? I had the radio feed on, and I'm just hearing like, oh.
Yeah, it was terrible, man. I mean, look, we could give Carrasco a little bit of a pass because he was on the IL, and I didn't think it was a very good idea bringing him back without a rehab start. I thought he needed one rehab start. I thought that would have helped him a lot get like the rust off, because that was one thing. He just looked rusty and he couldn't shake it off. And the Nationals have been playing better baseball lately. So even though they're still a bad team that's, for the most part offensively inept, there are still a lot of talented young players in there that if you make a bad enough mistake, they're going to take advantage of it. So I was kind of surprised that they ran Carrasco out there like that.
Those last place teams scare me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and as we've mentioned before on this show, we watched a very bad Marlins team close the Mets out 2 years in a row in 07, 08.
Yeah, I remember that. I'll never forget that. And anytime I see that those would have been playoff tickets
Yep.
for round from 2007 and 08, I get reminded of it when I see because I still have those would have been tickets because it wasn't something that I had to mail them back, and they were automatically refunded to my credit card.
Yeah, that's a shame, man. That's a shame. The that 07 run was just so bad, and 08 was even was just as bad too. But one other thing too is that I've seen a lot of people comparing how the Mets have done over the last few weeks and the Braves, trying to take advantage of it and everything. And but I don't really see many similarities between this Mets team and this Braves team and the 07 Phillies and the 07 Mets, because the difference to me is that the Phillies back then, they were winning a lot, but they weren't winning every single day, just like the Braves are right now. And the fact of the matter is the Mets are still playing pretty good baseball. It's just not as good as the Braves, who are absolutely killing it. Right? What do you think about that, Dan?
I think it feels like that, even though that 07 stretch felt like the Phillies kept winning a lot down that stretch.
Oh, yeah. It was terrible. And they did lose a lot. You're right. But I'm talking about this year's team. They're not losing that much. They're still they're still playing good ball. They just beat that's one thing that really makes me laugh too, is that the Mets went out and had a rough weekend against the Nationals. And it seemed like everybody just forgot that they just took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. And everybody was on top of the world when the Mets took 2 out of 3 from Dodgers. Everybody's screaming, "Oh, watch out, the Mets are the new team to beat in the National League. They could beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series if they have to, because the pitching they got." And then they have one bad weekend against the Nationals, and everybody's jumping off the bandwagon. I just look at this is a very long season. There's a reason why they play 162 games. You have a lot of ebbs and flows, and man, I mean, I could be just as bad as anybody else, but you can't turn on the team just because they had a bad weekend, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel this team is probably a little bit in better shape, especially the fact that the Grom is around in the stretch run. I mean, last year, we didn't have the Grom during that stretch run. And I remember last year, I felt like the Grom wasn't hurt. I don't think we would have. We either may have, even if we did have lost first place. I think we would have regained first place probably if the Grom was around. It just felt like that.
And you know what though? I do tend to agree with you that even if I'm not sure that the Mets would have won the division, because the Braves did get really hot that second half, I feel like even if they didn't win the division, they probably still could have won a wild card spot, right?
Yeah, they probably would have won a wild card spot, and I think the playoffs might have played out a little bit different last year.
Yeah, especially too if you remember, if the Mets were pushing the Braves the whole time, because after a certain point, the Mets crapped out, the Phillies crapped out, the Nationals and the Marlins were already out of it. So the Braves, the last couple of weeks of the season, just kind of skated until the end, and no team challenged them. They weren't pushed. They weren't really in a big pennant race. So they kind of went into the playoffs nice and relaxed. Now, that might have been different, just like you said, if the Mets had been on their heels the whole time and, pushing them and giving them a run for their money.
Yeah, I might have been probably be a much different shirt I'd be wearing today.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, so now, let's to just, wrap up with the Mets is right now we're seeing some very good stuff out of Jacob deGrom. So far, deGrom today, 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, no runs, 64 pitches through 5 innings for deGrom right now. So really good to see him at the top of his game. I mean, and he even too looked a little rusty. You got to remember too, he got a couple of extra days with the day off and the rain out and everything. So deGrom, maybe a little too rested as they'd say right now. But
a little too rested. I think deGrom should have pitched yesterday. I personally think.
Yep.
I think Walter needs to not give deGrom too many days off. I meant should not bump down his turn in the rotation too much. Be scheduled to start the next game. Have him as much as he can pitch on.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
I totally agree, man. Keep deGrom on an every 5-day regimen. Don't be bumping him back and messing around with his days. Just put him every 5th day. Taijuan Walker, look, do I like Taijuan Walker as a person? Yes. Do I mind Taijuan Walker as a pitcher? Not really. But would I start Taijuan Walker in a big game that matters? No, I wouldn't. Taijuan Walker has really proven to me. Look, he had a terrible second half last year. He's had a bad second half this year. And look, the only good start the guy's had, where you would say it's measured as a quality start, is the start that he had against the Reds in the beginning of October at Citi Field. That's the only good start he's had. He had a bad start against the Yankees. He had a bad start against the Braves. He had a bad start against the Pirates. And I like Taijuan Walker. I don't want to sit here and rip the guy, but he's just pitched like crap lately. And, you're really going to hold the rotation up in deGrom for Taijuan Walker? They should have just held him out and started him in the doubleheader today, right?
Yeah, exactly. This was a badly needed win, and they missed the boat on it yesterday, I felt.
Yeah, and having deGrom start that opener game and getting that win, that's a good way just to put your foot on a bad team's throat, where the Pirates are a crappy team. All the Mets did was, especially with Taijuan Walker, look, if it's 0-0 and deGrom's dominating in the 5th inning, and then, by the time the 6th or the 7th comes around and Brandon Nimmo hits that 2-run shot, so a 2-0 lead could feel insurmountable. But instead, that 2-run home run didn't even matter because Taijuan Walker had already given up 4 runs. It was just very disappointing. I can't kill Buck for that either, because he wants to keep Taijuan Walker on a regular schedule too. But to me, Taijuan Walker, if the Mets were starting, let me ask you this question, Dan. If the Mets were starting a playoff series tomorrow against a really good team like the Braves, if you are the manager, are you starting Taijuan? So let's just say that the way the series breaks down is that you can have 4 starting pitchers. So obviously you have deGrom, you have Scherzer, and you have Bassett as the top 3. If you're going to start a 4th guy, and it's your choice right now, who is that 4th guy?
I think at this point it might be either Carrasco or, depending how well he's come back, maybe even McGill.
Yeah, or I'd even throw David Peterson in that mix too.
Yeah, exactly. Even
I think you really hit the nail on the head though with the first guy, with Carlos Carrasco, because especially as long as, like you said, if he's healthy and they get him back to normal and he has a couple of good starts going into the playoffs, or at least he's pitching pretty well for the most part. To me, there's no doubt in my mind I'm starting Carlos Carrasco in that 4th game. And sure, I'll have David Peterson ready to pitch, long relief if needed. I'll have Taijuan Walker ready to pitch long relief if needed. But I'm going out there and I'm starting Carlos Carrasco, because I feel like compared to all the other guys, he gives me the best chance to win.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and now that we got the Mets out of the way, as always, take care of that early. We're gonna transition right into
Yep. Actually, this one I'm calling it the All Mugshot Team.
the All Mugshot Team. Okay. Oh yeah, like the All Madden team. You're right. You're right.
That one would work better for football. And
Yeah.
hopefully John Madden.
Exactly. So, all right. What we'll do here is then I'll give you the position, and then you tell me who your pick is. Okay.
All right.
All right, Dan. So we'll start off, of course, with the quarterback. Who do you have as the quarterback of your All Mugshot team?
This one's Michael Vick. Our quarterback. I mean, the guy was explosive during his time at quarterback. And bear in mind, some of these players I kind of had to look. It's going to be it would take up too much time to discuss all these little things about them. But I had to look up some stuff to get this whole All Mugshot team together.
Very true. Very true. And we all know the the story with Michael Vick. How he burst onto the scene with the Atlanta Falcons right out of Virginia Tech, and then unfortunately for him and a bunch of dogs, Michael Vick decided to get involved in a dog fighting ring and did some time in jail for that, and was never really the same again. But yeah, so that was a definite slam dunk pick right there for Michael Vick at quarterback.
And our first one, I mean, this one's obvious at running back. I mean, O.J. Simpson. I mean, the guy supposedly in the 70s was like the guy was like breaking records up like crazy in the 70s. And of course, we don't need to go through the whole story of O.J. Simpson. I mean, and anyone who like me who's lived through that, remember, like, was alive in 1994 or in 95 remembers how much of an attention what happened. All that
Of
attention.
course. We had the whole incident with him being chased with the Cato and the white Bronco, and happening, as we've discussed before, during the Knicks Rockets NBA Finals game. Very, very highly publicized. So the first two positions that we got out of the way, and obviously we're going to finish up with running back here in a second, are two guys that we know very well, that have been in the headlines. But for your second running back, Dan, who do you have at this position?
These ones we're going to kind of go through quick, most of them, but we got Cedric Benson at running back, and of course fullback we've got Jamal Lewis. Wide receiver, this one I never realized, Michael Irvin.
Oh, you never heard about Michael Irvin getting arrested? He had a lot of trouble with the law in the 90s.
Yep, I know this guy a lot, but this guy was like part of the this one is like, I see like every Cowboys fan brags about that. every bandwagoner is like, I feel like the Cowboys fans sometimes get a little bit almost like football's equivalent of the Yankee fans that brag about how much they won.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another one's obvious. Plaxico Burress. We all remember that literally shot himself in the foot. We all remember that one, and of course get arrested for illegal gun possession.
Yeah, he shot himself, and really derailed that Giants season, because the Giants still ended up going 12-4 that year in 2008 after they beat the Patriots. But the Giants were one of the best teams in football that year, and really bad job by Burress. Killing.
I felt him being out really played a factor in how that season ended. I mean, I just feel like that might have been a little bit different story. We might have even seen the first time the Giants won the Super Bowl back to back had Burress not been hurt, because that guy seemed to be a real X factor. The guy had that quickness and the height, and I feel like his height really gave him such a huge advantage.
No doubt about it, man. He was definitely a matchup nightmare, especially in the end zone, in the red zone. And if you remember correctly, that Super Bowl that year was the Cardinals and the Steelers. And, I think the Giants, especially that year, would have had a pretty good shot of taking out the Arizona Cardinals if they were fully healthy.
Yeah,
Because that was also the year that Tom Brady got hurt for the Patriots.
yeah, that was. I remember that. I remember that year very well. Also, we got at tight end, Mark. Some of these names are hard to pronounce. Chmura.
Yeah, Mark Chamara.
Mark Chamara. Offensive lineman, Jason Peters. Offensive lineman, Barrett Robbins. Another offensive lineman, Carl Nix. Defensive lineman, Albert Hainsworth. And this one I kind of thought seems like a weird timing that the defensive lineman also we got Will Smith, and like the actor Will Smith, he may have had maybe some problems attacking someone. I mean, he was arrested for assault and battery, and we all know the Will Smith during the Oscars, the whole incident. But
that's very true. It must run with that name.
yeah, sunning up with that name. And of course, linebacker, and this was the crazy part. This guy was the first football jersey I ever owned, and I probably would if these throwback jerseys didn't they started selling. They've been selling for a couple of years now since the NFL's been selling these throwback jerseys. I probably would own a Lawrence Taylor jersey, the 1980 style LT jersey. This guy was like, he was the shit when I first got introduced to the New York Giants.
Absolutely, man. I remember him being involved at WrestleMania too. 1 year, and he was one of the biggest names in football and sports in general.
Yeah, and by the way, LT, we'd love to have you on Best Seat in the House. By the way,
you have an open invitation, LT.
So another one that Jimmy. Well, this one's another one of Ray Lewis, of course.
Yeah, everybody knows the Ray Lewis story and the murder story with him and the white suit and all that stuff. So definitely a good candidate for a mugshot right there.
With linebacker, we got John Mosley, and cornerback, we got Samari Roll, and another cornerback, Adam Pac-Man Jones. Free safety, Eugene Robinson. Kicker, we got Sebastian Jankowski.
Yeah, the former Oakland Raider.
I don't know how to pronounce this one. Susaurburn.
Yeah, Todd Sauerbrunn.
And here we got it. The all mugshot team.
That is your 2022 Best Seat in the House podcast, all mugshot team, as presented by the great Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Terrific job on that, Dan. As we know it's definitely no secret that the NFL has had a problem with a bunch of their players getting arrested, and over the years, hey, that's quite a handful of players right there that you pulled up.
Yeah, that's right. Even some people whose names might be shown up in people's autograph memorabilia collections as well.
Very true. Very true. And while we're talking about football, I do want to touch on it real quick because honestly, there really hasn't been anything too much that happened. We're going to be starting tomorrow. The first game of the NFL season is for us tomorrow, but for anybody watching this and the day it comes out, it'll be tonight. The NFL comes back. Big first game tomorrow night. We got the Rams and the Buffalo Bills, the defending Super Bowl champion Rams against a very good Bills team. Before we even touch in the Jets and the Giants real quick, how you feeling about that first game, Dan? Who are you looking at to come out on top?
about this game for one thing. Hope all of you in the Los Angeles area with all the power outages you're going through because of the hot weather has been causing a lot of power outages. Hope you got enough fuel in your generators for that game, because if any of you are doing the same thing that Anthony does when he wants to watch things, hopefully you've got a big enough generator for a football game to watch a football game.
Yeah, and the way California is going, they're going to need a bigger generator because and that's if they even let them run them, because they're not even letting them charge their cars. Man, believe me, I used to live in California. I'm very happy that it's no longer the case.
Power outages a lot there yourself.
Yeah, well, luckily 10 years ago when I was there, that really wasn't really happening, but boy, it didn't take too long for them to turn into a third world country. But to get off California, because believe me, we could spend a lot of time talking about that. We got the Bills and the Rams, like you said, tomorrow. Just like you said, it's happening in LA. They're going to be unveiling their championship banner. They're going to have all the glitz and the glamour there, especially all the fanfare that goes with being the first NFL game of the season, that Thursday night game. What's your thoughts, Dan? Do you think that the Rams are going to win this first game? I believe that the Rams are 2.5-point underdogs the last I saw, which was surprising. What are you thinking, Dan?
I personally think that Buffalo is probably winning this one by a small margin. I feel like that, of course, LA probably usually has their defense, and at the same time, Buffalo, I think they are eager to win, and especially after the way their season ended, they're eager to show what they can do.
Very true. Very true, man. And as we turn our attention to our two teams around here, the Giants are just obviously training camps wrapped up. We're just a couple of days away from the first game of the season, and coming out of Daboll's first training camp and everything that went into it, Dan, what's your confidence level right now as we're preparing for the first game of the season?
My confidence level, I feel this year might be more of a building block year for this team, because I feel like right now the important part, Daniel Jones shows he can play up to the standards that are expected. I mean, shows he can rebound from this thing. I think also Saquon Barkley needs to show that he can he can up his game this year. So this is gonna be a make or break year. Probably, I'm hoping at least they come close to making the playoffs at least.
Yeah.
Maybe set the. It might take years to get there, but I'll take it. I mean, I hope. I mean, reality. I mean, I would hope that they do win the whole thing, but at the same time, I hope they make that step forward, at least make some progress. So hopefully, eventually, we'll get back to that big stage, and I'll be having a rooting interest. I'll be at a Super Bowl party where I'm more glued to the TV than really referring.
Well, you're more glued to the TV than checking out the food, right?
Exactly. It's a different experience when the Giants have been in the Super Bowl. I'm kind of glued to the TV. Maybe I'm going to the bathroom every commercial. Maybe during a halftime show, especially if it's an act I'm not really so interested in, like what. I mean, I probably would have been interested in seeing Madonna during the '80s, but present day Madonna during the time of Super Bowl 46, she wasn't any of her hits from back in the day. Didn't really enthusiasm me because of what I expected the set list was going to be for that halftime show.
Mm-hmm.
So did go to the. I did go to the bathroom during a halftime show. I did go to the bathroom during the halftime show. I'll admit that.
Oh, very cool. And hey, at least you've had the experience of seeing the Giants in the Super Bowl, because I still have not seen my team in a Super Bowl, and I'm just holding out hope that eventually one day I will. And for your Giants right now, the trek to getting back to the Super Bowl starts on Sunday, 4:05 at Tennessee. Tennessee's a tough game. If we're gonna look at the early portion of the Giants' schedule, it's against Tennessee, then Carolina, their home opener. That's a game that the Giants should, be in and contend to be in. They're playing Dallas after that. What's that, Dan?
I gotta say, hopefully that game against Carolina. Hopefully, I got a bragging right off of a good friend of mine who somehow, he's a New Yorker, and it's a fellow Met fan, good friend of mine himself. Somehow, ever since he's lived in the Carolinas, has been a Panthers fan.
Panthers, wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, believe me, I've seen. I'm surprised how I became a Panthers fan and how I became a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes. But anyway, hopefully I got Hopefully I got that Hopefully I get that bragging right during week 2. All right, as much as I love my friend Jack. Hopefully I get bragging right. I mean, also since he's a truck driver, I got to give a shout out to the truck drivers of America. God bless. These guys are hard work, everyday heroes. That's delivered just about everything in your house has been delivered by these trucks, by these guys who spend a lot of time away from their friends and family on the road.
Very true. Very true. And you definitely, we definitely got to give the love to the truckers. We love the truckers here on Best Seat in the House, as we've given this shout out before in the past.
Speaking of that, one of these days, I'm what that might. I would love to do that one of these days. Maybe hitch a ride with one of my truck driver friends, from other, and maybe take a trip to that state, whatever state he went to, let's say, and just see what it's like traveling from one state to another on a truck like that. I'm kind of intrigued to see what that's like one day.
Very true. That'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome. Maybe we could work that out. Your buddy, who's a Carolina fan, maybe you can make a bet with him that if the Giants win, he has to take you on a trip somewhere.
Yeah. Hopefully it's somewhere good. I usually never know where he's going because he's all over the place. I mean, I always joke around when I talk to him on the phone. I'm saying like, "Hey, where you happen to be headed out today?" All over the place. They go all over the place.
No doubt about it, man. Definitely all over the place. And
sometimes in Christmas cards and stuff, he sends me these scratchers from various states. Scratch off tickets from various states.
Very cool. And also to keep rolling here with the NFL too, we mentioned the Giants. Dan, what'd you think about the news that came down earlier today, actually, that the Jets had named Joe Flacco as the Week 1 starter? I didn't think there was much of a surprise to it. Did you?
That was not much of a surprise. I mean, Jet fans, it's either going to go really well or really south. I mean, I could imagine Jet fans are nervous about that. Those first couple of weeks, depending how long Zach Wilson's out. I mean, if you remember last week, I called back to that Curb Your Enthusiasm episode.
Yep. Yes, I remember. Yeah, and it's true. It's true, man. The thing with the Jets too is that they didn't really have much of a choice. Where it's okay, we knew that Zach Wilson wasn't going to be ready for the first week. There was no reason to rush the kid. We even said it on here on the show weeks ago that don't rush him. If as long as he's back, and looking that he could be productive by whatever week 3, week 4, the beginning of October. There shouldn't be any rush. These first 4 games the Jets are playing are going to be really, really tough as they play all four members of the AFC North to kick this season off. So it's going to be Flacco playing against his former team, the Ravens on opening week in MetLife. Then after that, the Jets are going to be playing Cleveland, obviously the Deshaun Watson-less Cleveland Browns. After that, they're taking on Cincinnati and then finishing up that 4-game stretch with Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, where the Jets never fare well. So, they're just going to have to. I think it's a break too, because even though I like Zach Wilson and their future is obviously in Zach Wilson's hands, I think that the matchup and the experience level works out in the Jets' favor that Zach Wilson missed a tough game like the Ravens defense, right?
Yeah, he probably may have caught a break. Also, I have to say regarding the Giants, I'm looking at the schedule, and we're playing. The Giants are playing on Thanksgiving this year, so I'm hoping we're still, at least we're still in contention. That I want to at least have that game be relevant while I'm in front of my TV eating my my Thanksgiving dinner in front of the TV. That time, I'll probably have to set up one of those little one of those tables in the living room to. If knowing how like late in the afternoon or sometimes around like 7, sometimes knowing because of how long it takes to like cook all that stuff for Thanksgiving, it's probably going to be around game time. I'll be eating. So
yeah, I mean, as Jets and Giants fans, with all the crap that we watched over the last couple of years, the only thing we really have to ask for is that just, hey, by Thanksgiving time, and as you know, the Jets aren't playing on Thanksgiving this year, but the Giants are. Just be relevant for both of our teams. Just be relevant. Be around 500 at least. Be in playoff contention, because, man, we can't have it be Halloween again this year, and the Jets and the Giants are completely irrelevant by that point. We cannot have that again.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to go through that again. I want to have something that makes the winter go by a little faster.
Exactly. And you know what? If you're watching this show too, don't forget to stick around, because we're going to be finishing up today's show with our much anticipated Stump the Bow segment with the big Stump the Bow question. But before we move on to that, though, I do want to talk about the Yankees real quick, because boy, it's been a rough go for the Yankees. I mean, the one constant that keeps happening for them is Aaron Judge hitting home runs. The guy is an absolute monster and has 55 home runs now. The Yankees just won by the skin of their teeth this afternoon. They put up 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th to take the day cap of the doubleheader, 5-4. They're currently trailing 1-0 right now. But I mean, this is a team, everybody wants to talk about the Mets the last couple of days, about how Atlanta has whittled their division lead down and all this stuff. But the Yankees had a 16-game lead in their division, and it could be down to 4.5 by the end of today. It was already 4. But man, it's just crazy to me. The free fall the Yankees have been in, and sure, they've been able to try and straighten things out for a couple of days here and there. But I mean, what's your gut reaction, Dan, right now? Do you think the Yankees hold on to this division title, or do you think that they're in a free fall that just can't be stopped?
Well, part of me kind of wanted to say to some of my fellow Yankee fan friends, said, yeah, now you kind of know what it's like with us Mets fans those 2 years. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, like, I don't know if the kind of word is them panicking, because I know most of them, at least some of the ones my age, have gotten to see that. The Yankee fans my age, they've gotten to see that whole dynasty. But I know there are some younger Yankee fans that may have not gotten to know that dynasty. But I have to say, they got to be nervous. They probably have to be nervous at this time. They got to be nervous, and it's gonna. I have a feeling if the Yankees don't make the playoffs, that Brian Cashman would probably be fired. I
Well,
just have
well, either way, either way, they're going to make the playoffs because they're still far ahead enough in the wild card and all that stuff that they'd still make the playoffs. But well, let me ask you this question: do you think, because obviously what you were going to say is that if the Yankees don't make the playoffs, Brian Cashman should be fired, which I don't disagree with. I think you're right about that. But let me ask you this: if the Yankees blow the division but still hold on to the wild card and make the playoffs, who knows what can happen from there. But do you think that the Yankees should keep Brian Cashman as long as they make the playoffs? Or do you think that this whole thing has just been too ugly and they should just get rid of him and start over?
might be depending on how that first round goes. That even if they have to play as a wild card, but it might depend on that. And I never expected that we could see it actually happen unexpectedly. Brian Cashman be fired, which seems shocking. How I'm surprised the Yankees kept the GM that long. Because I mean, we all remember that running gag from that Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
Surprising that we've kept the GM. I got to give props to him for sticking around that many years because we don't normally see GM stick around that many years.
That's very true. I mean, especially with the Yankees, like you said, because sometimes they could, and even at different times during George's reign, it seems like they could be going through executives and managers and all this shit like they're going through water. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you. Very interesting stuff with the Yankees now. And hey, it's not getting any easier because after they get done with the series against the Twins, where it's been a little up and down for them, then they got to play Tampa Bay for one more big series where Tampa Bay did a lot of damage to the Yankees last week. So, the Yankees are going to be, hopefully for them, getting Nestor Cortez back relatively soon. You just got to hope that you can ride a guy like, Garrett Cole and see if he can be that $300 man for you, a $300 million man for you, because that's what he is. The Yankees have their future securely invested in guys like him. And, the one last thing before we turn the page on the Yankees, though, Dan, Aaron Judge, we mentioned earlier, 55 home runs. He's right now on pace for, I believe, 66 home runs. 61 is the Yankees number. 73 obviously is the number for Bonds, but that's just fucking ridiculous. He's not going to get to 73. What do you think? Do you think he has a shot? Well, I mean, he definitely has a shot, but do you think he's going to beat that Roger Maris 61 number for the Yankees?
I think there's a 50-50 chance that happens, and I'm sure it's already cha-ching during the off season for him, but he breaks that record. If he breaks that record, if he passes that 61 mark, maybe add a couple of more cha-chings to that.
Very well said. Very well said. You're right about that, buddy. And hey, with that, we're coming down to the final stretch here of the Best Seat in the House podcast. And we've got one more thing that we want to get to. We have a special little game here we're going to be playing. We're going to be playing this every week now. So if you want to play this game, it's called hashtag Stump the Bow. And what we're going to be doing here is just every week we're going to give a trivia question to my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And it's just going to be any kind of sports trivia. This week we're starting off with baseball, but it could be any sport that you want for the most part, tennis, whatever stuff like that. It's gonna be a big sport, at least one of the main four. And so if you want, please find us on Twitter at bsith_podcast and hashtag any of your tweet with hashtag Stump the Bow, and just send us any question that you want. Obviously include the answer, or at least give us the ability to look up the answer ourselves. And I will direct everything else, and we will play this game and my co-host Daniel Bobo Kurlan will be under the microscope when we play Stump the Bow. And that's what we're starting off this time. Dan, you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right. We're going to be starting off hashtag Stump the Bow with a question from one of our loyal listeners on Twitter. Joshua over here, he did, let me see it right here. Okay. His question is, who is the only person to win World Series MVP for the Yankees and then pitch for the Mets after that? Dan, give yourself a second to soak that question in. I'll repeat it in a second. Who is the only man to win World Series MVP for the New York Yankees and then play for the Mets after that?
See, I think it would probably be Ralph Terry.
Is your answer is Ralph Terry?
Yeah.
Dan? That is absolutely correct.
Whoa!
That is right.
Oh, you can't stop the ball.
There we go. You can't stop the ball. You're right about that, man. Absolutely. You cannot stop the ball, as Ralph Terry won World Series MVP for the Yankees in 1962 and then pitched for the Mets in 1966 and 1967. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what else you need to see. Hashtag Stump the Bow is off and running. He is 1 for 1 right here on September. People are going to be seeing this on September 8th, 2022. We start the streak. Cal Ripken Jr. is going to be looking in his rearview mirror. Joe DiMaggio looking in his rearview mirror, because hashtag Stump the Bow is coming for you right now. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we had a lot of fun on today's show. Thank you for tuning in. Dan, before we get out of here, you have any plugs for yourself?
Sure. You got my Twitter, Bobo103NYC. Got my Instagram, Bobo718DK. My YouTube, Daniel Kurlan. Also, I'll be performing this Sunday, Brooklyn Comedy Club I believe it's in the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn. You could definitely check out the show. Check out our show's Twitter page. The links will be there. I've tweeted the link also. It's at Brooklyn Comedy Clubs in the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn around early evening on a Sunday, September 11th. Definitely come by, see me perform. I'll be part of it. I'm on the bill for a stand-up show. Been working on the material for it. Didn't expect I'd be booked asked to do a comedy show, but I knew I'd be able to pull this off for a little bit, and I'm excited about it. I feel like my set's got some laughs in it, and I hope the audience likes it. Definitely definitely swing by the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn to Brooklyn Comedy Club that evening and come see it.
Absolutely. Do yourself a favor and check Dan out on Sunday night, September 11th, at Brooklyn Comedy Club. We'll have all the information on the video, so do yourself a favor and check that out. We'll also be tweeting it out too, so if you want to check it out, be sure to check out our social media. You can check out our podcast.
Tickets are on sale now.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to get those tickets, one of the places you could check them out, because we'll be putting the links up too, is on BSith_podcast on Twitter. You can also check me out on Twitter at my last name Cramer NY. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in and playing along and hanging out with us on this show. A lot of fun today. We're gonna have a lot of fun next week too, as we're really gonna be able to sink our teeth into this brand new NFL season. So thank you for sticking around with us. And thanks again. Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside Daniel Bobo Kurlan, and have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week.